Well, good morning everyone and welcome to the show. Today, we have something you guys have been asking for and you constantly ask for. What is it, Fernando?
It's a 911 race kit.
On an F-150.
There you go.
How cool is that? All right, stay tuned. This customer reached out to us after watching our F-150 Raptor video. He has an F-150 with a Bang & Olufsen system in it. It has a DM608, it has a bunch of JL amplifiers. And he was like, something just doesn't seem right with my system. Can you guys take a look at it? He brought it here, he asked Fernando, hey Fernando, can you take a look at my system?
Yeah, sure, let's go.
And they came out and they saw this. Where to begin? So let's go through and show you what we found right off the bat and some of the things we're gonna be tasked with fixing. So first thing you notice when he popped the hood is that the ground does not come to here. It's just grounded to the aluminum frame in the back. Now for those of you that ever installed a Zen audio product, the first thing that it warns you on the Zen installation is that don't do that. Ground resistance is gonna be too high for it to function properly and that you should connect to the battery. And if you call and ask Nav TV for tech support, that's the first question they ask you. Did you connect to the battery? And when you say no, good luck. That's all I gotta say. Now, other than this just not being pretty, there's not much wrong back here. I mean, yeah, the wires are kind of draped around, but it's not the end of the world. I like the blue tape. The blue tape is a nice touch, but this guy, this is the software for this guy. So we're on output channel 1 has every single input feeding it. There's no crossovers on because they've turned them on here on the amplifier, which there again, that's up to you. No time delay being used. And this is the only EQ that they've done. This is it. I'm guessing they did the auto EQ feature and this is all it fixed because after all, it has a Zen feeding it a clean signal input. There's no de-equalization needed. So using that feature on this is utterly pointless. But that would also explain why there is so much floor noise and gain hiss, is because as you can see, it did a boost here in the treble. Now, none of the other channels have any equalization done on them at all. This is essentially just a cool black box that is the RCAs are running through and going over the amplifiers. It's not doing anything at all. In the doors, we went with the nice Focal integration coaxials. There again, nothing particularly wrong with this. This is a good speaker to go with. However, they do make a 6x9 component version of this, which is probably what I would have gone with so that you could put the tweeter up here. Now they did install some tweeters into the A-pillar, and they just used the cap, which is kind of strange. Let's pull this bracket off. They made a custom bracket. And we have another Focal tweeter mounted up in that location. Thankfully they kept the grill on it so that they didn't smash the tweeter into the mount here. That's cool. Power wires are ran on top of the zip ties, that there's plenty of, you can go underneath these. But there again, that's just nitpicking. This is what I don't understand. They ran wires and then we also have this, here's the bass knob, and then a purple wire, which we don't know what that's going to yet, but we'll figure it out. So all in all, it's not like the most terrible thing we've seen come through here. It's just a couple things that just need to be buttoned up to make everything work properly, like actually tune it and run a ground to the battery to fix that issue. He doesn't care. He just says tear it all out because I don't like it, not what I wanted. So what is he gonna do? So to power everything now, he wants to take out the 2 JL amplifiers and put in this Focal 6-channel amplifier. He wants to keep the DM608 and the Zen. He wants to pull out his front speakers and he wants to put in the new Flax Evo 6.5 components for the front doors. We'll mount the crossovers in the rear because we'll have room since we're only going to go with the one big amplifier. We'll take all this out and see what kind of other secrets are hidden behind here. One other thing, they built him a subwoofer enclosure and it has a JL woofer in there, but it is a gorgeous enclosure. They did a beautiful job on the enclosure. Leather inserts on the top and across the front here. It's spectacular. That just goes to show you, just because you can build a beautiful box, what's behind the panels is really what matters. Fernando's gonna go ahead and get the door panels off. The plan for them is to roadkill all of this fast rings and then just do fast rings on the rear door. I'm gonna get the amplifiers out and start dealing with what's going on behind there and then build a new amp rack. Before you start taking any equipment out of a car, make sure you disconnect the power from the battery so you don't damage any of the equipment that's in the car. And then tighten the battery back up. Don't leave it loose. I'm also gonna pull out their fuse holder. We're not gonna be reusing this one. When we do these disassemblies like this, we give the customer back all their old wiring. We don't need it, we don't want it. So I've put the fuse holder back together. We're just gonna leave it in a pile, and in the end we collect it all together and we give it back to them. They can do whatever they want with it. Some of the guys like to take it back to the stereo shop where they got their install from. Whatever works for you. With the battery disconnected, we can start pulling things out. The Zen is Velcroed in place. I want to get this out of here. Once we get this all out, I'm going to plug this back in because I want to make sure that all the channels are doing what they're supposed to do. The way they had the DSP set up, it's kind of odd. So I want to do some testing with this just to make sure that they didn't damage it. They must have ran out of screws because they don't have 4 matching screws to screw this in. I love it when you're unscrewing an Allen key and they don't use ferrules, so all you have to do is turn it like 1 rotation and the wire falls right out. That makes things so much easier to take out. This is the metal bracket that holds the amplifier, and the ground is sitting on top of that, which is then sitting on top of the car, which is aluminum. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I'm amazed this stuff works. I mean, I know some of the things that we run into and we're just like crazy, like hard to believe. Well, I was really hoping they wouldn't have, but they did. They cut the factory plug to the amplifier for the speakers. That's what this is. Yeah, they got some weird stuff going on for sure. And it looks like they took the Zen harness and are using that to power the DSP. The TV would be thrilled to see that. Now everything is Tessa taped over here. This is what I love about people that use Tessa tape. Here you go. There's your Tessa tape. All 14 inches of it. That's all they used. The idea behind the Tessa tape is not necessarily where you're gonna see it. I wouldn't even use it there if you didn't need to. The whole idea behind the Tessa tape is to add insulation. It's like put on in little 2-inch pieces. Oh, they just had to lengthen it so that where you saw it. For where you're not gonna see it, behind panels, that's where the factory puts all their tape, is so that things don't get caught. It's a protectant. Using it only where you're gonna see it it's not the purpose of the tape. And the other thing too is, do me a favor, don't Tessa tape up your bass knob to anything. That's the one thing I don't bother to insulate on anything, because I will zip tie it into place and I'll zip tie it to a harness, but I don't Tessa tape it into anything, or lumen anything for that matter if I can avoid it. Bass knobs on amplifiers are typically some of the cheapest parts of the amplifier, and if there's anything that's gonna be bad, it's gonna be that. And if you have to do all this to replace the bass knob, that sucks. Here's our ground. Yay! And it's the whole thing's Tessa taped. That's so cool. I'm gonna put this over on the bench, and then I want to do some testing on the Zen to make sure that it's doing everything we need it to do and it still functions the right way. Off this amp rack, one of the things we're going to salvage is the power distribution. We're only gonna have one amplifier, and this is a dual output, and my plan is one side will be ground, one side will be power. Coming out of these two here, going off to another small fuse will be for the Zen and the DM608, and then these will just continue on to our 6-channel amplifier. So we can reuse this. Now these amplifiers are not a total loss. He's going to use these in another car that he has, where he's going to be doing a different system. So they will be going to a good home, his. He just doesn't want them in his car anymore. When removing wire from an amplifier with all these style screws, make sure to tighten them back up. Don't leave them loose. They might bounce around in the car for a couple weeks before people take them out, and those screws can become loose and they will roll away and be gone. When they bring them back to have them reinstalled, they're not there, and that poses a problem because they were there when they left. I'll go put these in the back of the truck with all the wiring. Everything's cleaned up and out. I have all the goo and tape off of the Zen harness. Like I said, they put Velcro on the back of it. In doing so, they covered up this sticker here. That's the serial number. Don't put Velcro or sticky tape or anything over the serial number on the back of the unit. Now, if this unit ever needs to be serviced, it's not there. It's gonna be an issue. I have my laptop. I'm on the Nav TV page with the Zen, and I'm looking at my 12 channels of output. This has 12 channels of output. And what I'm looking for is 1 and 2, 5 and 6, and 12. Those should be my front, rear, and sub outputs. I have my handheld RTA, plug it in, turn up the volume. And what I'm looking for is this to show some movement here, this black line right there. So that is channel 1. Channel 2 is giving me the same. Channel 6, channel 5, channel 12, and all of them look the same. I want to try my balance and fader. I've faded all the way to 4, which is the passenger rear door. Right rear door should be 8. Oh wow, okay, so I want 7 and 8, not 5 and 6. So 1 through 6 is all front. 7 and 8 are rear doors, and 8 gives me signal. That means 7 should give me nothing, and 7 gives me nothing. Move the fader control, and now I have signal coming over 7. Try 1, nothing. I have signal coming over 1. Let's go to 2. And I have signal coming over 2. None of this should affect 12, and it doesn't. I still have signal coming over 12. You might be asking why it has 12 channels of output. The Zen products have multiple platforms that they're available on. Some cars have 12 channels of output, therefore those outputs are there. For the RCAs I'm not going to use, I have these little RCA covers that come on some of the units, and when we take them off to run RCAs, we save them for situations like this. So these RCAs just won't be banging around back here live that could cause us issues. Now that we know that this is working the way we wanted it to, the last thing I need to test is their remote turn on output to make sure that functions. That's easy enough to do if I get 12 volts, and I do, so I have remote turn on. With everything out of the car, the next step is figure out how everything is going to be put back into the car. But before I do that, I need to work on making a mount for the tweeter and a mount for the 6.5 in the door. That means it's laser time.
Now that we pull the speaker out and we find that the speaker bracket doesn't have foam, we're gonna go and put some foam in front and back, put our fuzz ring, and screw the speaker back on. We're gonna go and put our fast rings, but before that, I have some scrap roadkill that we can use in case in the future he wanna go crazy and roadkill the whole door. We don't have to waste the back foam from the fast rings. The best way to find out if your fast ring is gonna hit the window every time we roll it up and down is to grab it, put it in the back, and carefully roll the window down. Now you can see it's gonna hit the foam. What we're gonna do, we're gonna cut like a 1/4 inch from the foam. Test it. Now we know it's free. Peel the paper. Now for the second piece, we're gonna do the same thing. This one is free. Now we can peel the paper. Make sure to squeeze the fast rings so they actually glue attached to the speaker bracket. What they did before, they put the wire crushing with the speaker bracket. We just make our hole, we come through here, and everybody's gonna be happy. I'm gonna solder my wires and put a quick disconnects on the factory wire. If they wanna take it out, they can disconnect it and pull the whole bracket out. Let's go to the bench. Now we put red and black heat shrink factory wiring, so whoever is gonna take this door panel out or the speaker, if they're gonna do anything, they know which one is positive and which one is negative. Now let's put the final piece. We make a cut for our wire. I always try to go behind the screw so we can have access to it. Now the next step is make sure to put the door panel and make sure it doesn't hit the foam or fold the foam into the speaker. We have plenty of space. What I'm going to do is cut this plastic around the speaker so we got more room. You can go and put the door panel back on. I'm gonna jump into the rear door. I normally start in the fronts, but because Dean is gonna start working on amplifiers, take everything out, I rather to do that right now that he's not here. As soon as I'm done with the rears, I can move in the fronts and he can work in the backs.
The front doors, we're gonna replace them with the Flax Evo PS165 FXE. These are the brand new, just released Focal Flax series speakers. One of the big differences on the new version is of course the tweeter has a whole new design, a new material. The mid bass has also been updated. One of the key things in that is the new surround. And then we have the passive crossovers. The passive crossovers can be used as 2-channel input and 4-channel output, meaning to the tweeter to the mid, or they're bi-amp capable, meaning you can run a channel in for the tweeters, a channel in for the mid, and then out to tweeter, out to mid. As far as mounting options go, they have this back trim ring here and an angle mount. This flush here is also removable around the tweeter, so you can get to the core tweeter itself. You can also pull off the grill if you want, and you can see that new sexy tweeter there. When working with the tweeter, until you're done, I suggest leaving that grill on there. This is the A-pillar we're going to be designing a speaker pod for. Now normally we'd take off the factory one, we'd scan it in, and yay, but we don't have that luxury on this one. We do have the new tweeter, of course. Fortunately for us, we've done enough of these that we are actually already have the basic shape downloaded into the computer, and we have our F150 tweeter here. This is our basic shape for it. Anytime we're going to be making a new version of it, I like to make a duplicate, label it, and we can just close our old version of the tweeter. We need to take a look at characteristics of this tweeter, see how it is going to fit into the door. This tweeter has this new shape to it where it actually sticks out pretty far, so being able to mount the tweeter from behind might be a better option. That way we can take this grill off. The reason why we want to take this grill off is so we don't have two grills. If you twist the grill over the grill, you'll see at certain places it actually blocks the grill. Being able to remove it would be a benefit. What I'm thinking is our standard shape here, but then a second piece that's going to be on the inside of it so that this tweeter will slide through and lay into it. That means that the first hole needs to be the size of this outside ring. So we'll take that measurement. If we select the center point, that will shrink this circle into that center point. This new circumference will be centered where it was previously, but just be our new smaller size. Now that means that this tweeter should go into there. What we need next is something a little bit thinner. Once we have the two circles drawn, this will be our mount. This will sit on top of this circle here. We can glue those two together and our tweeter will sit inside of them. Now I know looking at pictures like that, it sounds really, okay, what's going on? Let's just export it, print out mock-up, and see if it all fits. Once it's all set and ready to go on the Glowforge, just press the white button that's blinking and away she goes. She's gonna start burning out what we've just drawn on the computer over there. For this, we're just using 1/8 inch MDF. That'll give us the basic shape that we need before we cut it out of acrylic. Take it over and test fit it. I want to stack them like this. So you can see the one is just a tad bit smaller. And that's what I'm going for right there. This should just come in that outside circle. This will just go through that. This the inside circle will stop just like the grill, and that'll keep it sitting, and then the two will go. If everything goes according to plan, this will sit in there just like this, and our tweeter will be nice and far away and safe. Now I can cut these out of acrylic and get them glued together, and we'll have our tweeter mounts. So I changed up the layout just a little bit. So we still have the front, but how we're gonna attach the tweeter is the front piece will be glued to the back piece, or the middle piece now. And then there's a second piece which has the same hole as this. It's gonna clamp all three pieces together and hold the tweeter in place. This back piece and these two won't be glued together, they'll just be held together with the screws. The first step is to glue the two rings together. Now before it sets up, I want to test fit the tweeter, make sure everything is good. Now it takes a couple minutes to dry. This one I've already glued up. Peel the paper off the acrylic using another piece of acrylic works really well. Set the tweeter inside. It'll go flush. Take our back piece and that will hold our tweeter in place. Not gonna go anywhere. This back hole is the same size as that front hole, so that is locking that tweeter in. Now when we put these two screws in, everything will stay put into the car. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna add a little bit of foam to this, so when the two go together, it makes a really tight bond and holds that tweeter nice and tight in place. For foam, we're going to use our 1/16 inch, 1/4 inch width foam, wrap it around the outside of the back mount of the tweeter, getting it as close to that lip as possible. Grab our front plate. That part here is on top. We want to rotate it so our wires are facing down. Grab our lock for the back, set it over the tweeter and gently push. That will compress that foam into place and give us a nice solid mount. Grab the two factory screws, and there we go. We have our tweeter mount all in place. Now I'm going to pull this back off because I want to add some foam to the front to push all that sound into this grill so that none of it gets lost behind here. Now just like when you're putting a fast string in the car, you got to be careful with the foam. You don't want the foam to roll over the speaker. That'll cause the speaker to blow. On this side here is a lot closer to the tweeter. Kind of fan it out like a flower. I'm gonna test it a little bit. This is way too close for comfort. If you have a bright light, you can look at it from the front to make sure that none of the foam rolled in. If you're happy with your work, screw it back into place. Fernando will go ahead and dress up the rest of this and put our ends on it, but now we have a tweeter mount. It's time to make the amp board to mount these products back here. It seems like there's a lot of space, but there really isn't, especially when you have something like that's this big. This is a big amplifier. When we put them in, you want to put it in a manner so that it's not totally impossible to do any adjustment to it. Face them down like this, it's really hard to get to the adjustment. In these trucks, we try to put them so that the controls are on the side here. The same is true with the DSP. If you mount it down like this with all the RCAs, it's cool, but then it also makes it very hard to plug in like the USB, and just servicing it can be a hassle. When you put it sideways like this, it makes everything visually easy to see. It looks like I'm gonna need all this space here. I'm figuring I'm gonna put the Zen here in the corner because it needs to be able to plug into the A to B USB that they're using. Right below it, I'll mount the power distribution. I'll raise the amp up a 1/2 inch so my power wire can go underneath it and into the input, and that'll solve that one problem. Just kind of figure out where the crossovers in the DSP are gonna go over on this side. One other thing that we had an aha moment about that I can't believe we didn't just figure out from the get-go was the Zen has a Toshlink output, which is fiber optic, and the DM608 has an input for it. Instead of us having to run all those RCAs, we don't have to do that. We're just gonna go Toshlink out of this, directly into this, and be done. That'll make things super simple. We'll just have the RCAs coming out of this into the amplifier. Now we need to grab some plastic. For this, we'll be using 1/4 inch Centra, which is the blown PVC. It's gonna have a screw point here and here. Up the top, we'll retain those factory, and then just like they had, there's a bolt over in the corner here. We'll make a bracket that will allow us to retain that and hold everything nice, tight, and in place. I'm gonna get a tape measure and start taking some measurements. If any of you are wondering what size plastic you'd want to buy for yours, an 18 by 32.5 inch piece, or 34, would be perfect. I'm gonna go cut that out and then we'll bring it back in and start getting the shape that we need for it. Some rough tick marks on here to give me a guideline. Now I'll take it over to the bench and draw the rest of these lines in and then cut the shape out. So there's screws here, and I want to make sure I drill the holes where those two screws are. So if I just press really hard on them, then I will be able to drill the holes. Fits good. There is a couple beauty things I want to do, like I want to round these corners just to make it look more finished other than this look. Now I just need to do my layout, figure out how everything's gonna fit. And also on this particular product, there is a piece of covering on it. That's why we drew on it with the white, because we can just peel this off and it'll be perfectly clean. I'll meet you guys over at the bench. Let's take a look at the full count amplifier that we're gonna be using for this install. This is the FDP 6.900 6-channel amplifier. It has 6 times 150 at 4 ohms. It's 6 times 200 at 2 ohms, 4x150 at 4 ohms, and 1x500 on channels 5 and 6 at 4 ohms. And then this is a really cool one. 4x150 at 4 ohms for channels 1 through 4. 1x500s on channels 5 and 6 bridged at 2 ohm. That's not something you normally see on a stereo amplifier. Most stereo amplifiers will only do 4 ohm bridged. This one does 2 ohms bridged. That's a pretty cool feature. Comes with the bass knob, comes with some mounting bracket, bag of screws and an Allen key. One of the unique features about this amplifier, this guy here. As we said, it comes with 2 brackets in the box. Those are designed to mount into the side like this, and this is your screw down point. If you don't want to see these, it has this. You screw this down to your substrate. The amplifier will then go over it, and you put the screws into the side here, and it gives it that clean, no screw look, as opposed to just having, let's say, 4 circles here or 2 feet sticking off the side. That's also going to kind of depend on how you're planning on mounting it. If you don't have room here and here, that piece will make it a little bit easier. Looking at the side of the amplifier, you have a 4-gauge power and ground input with remote turn on. You have your 6 speaker terminals in, and it's what we call an over-under, meaning channel 1 is first, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4, channel 5, channel 6. You have your bass knob input. Looking at all your adjustments and switches on the side of the amplifier, it has 2, 4, or 6 channel RCA input capability. Channel 1 gain control is located here. You have flat, high pass, or copy from 3 and 4. Your crossover goes from 50 to 4K, so channel 1 can be used to power a tweeter. 3 and 4 has the option for flat, high pass, or band pass, or low pass. If you want to use this to power mid-range, you have the bottom for the mid-range and the top for the mid-range. They're again variable between 50 and 4K. Your gain control, both gain controls are from 0.2 to 8 volts of input. Across the bottom is channels 5 and 6. Gain control, flat, high pass, low pass with band pass. The high pass goes from 10 to 120, which can be a subsonic filter or a bottom for a mid bass. And then low pass goes from 45 to 1K, which can be used for a top for your mid bass. So this amplifier can be configured as tweeter, mid, mid bass, tweeter, mid, rear, front, rear, sub, or any combination of those. Your inputs are just standard RCA style inputs. Here we go, rounded the corners. Let's get some equipment and start laying this out and figuring out where everything's gonna go. My thought is kind of get this amp mounted. I'm gonna put this up on a riser like we talked about earlier. My signal wire can come around here and attach this way, as well as the signal coming from here can come into this, so that can kind of work somewhere in this. One will probably be on the back side to keep it away from the power. The RCAs will come out of here into this, so that'll be a nice clean shot far away from everything else. And we have to run 2 tweeter wires up front because in this particular vehicle the tweeter's power is off of the radio and not off of the Bang & Olufsen amplifier in the back. Kind of odd, I know. They're gonna go up the passenger side of the car, so those can come and go this way. And then we got a bass knob. I like this layout, so now it's time to screw all this stuff down and get to wiring. So put the one screw in here in the corner. We're just gonna fold this up. I'm gonna go around the other side, shine a light in. Everything fits nice. When you're test fitting in one of these, make sure that the seat is, the butt is folded down and the top is folded up. Don't do it like this. I mean, test it to make sure that it doesn't hit. But the whole seat changes as it moves. This, do this, do the whole acrobatic thing to make sure you're good. Now there is one piece I have left to build, which is this corner mount right here. That's gonna go over this one little screw. I just need to take a measurement, cut that little piece, and we'll be all set. Sometimes you get lucky and you find a piece in the scrap bin that is perfect. I got a 1-inch piece here already rounded over. Awesome. I'm just gonna drill a hole, put it in, I'll put some tape on here, get it lined up, and that way we can screw it in. And through the magic of time lapse, the amplifier rack is done. Zen power distribution here. On the back, located right here, is the fuse holder for the DM608. Once this goes into the car, if we need to get to it, this can pry forward like this so we can get to that. Out of there, all our speaker wires in and out. Tweeter wires are going to be going this way. This is the subwoofer wire. This is the speaker wires here that are going to go to this area where the factory wiring is. And of course the bass knob is going to follow the power wire up into the dash. Let's get this into the car, and then one last project I have to work on is that bass knob. We decided to change it up a little bit. The bass knob for this, well, it didn't really fit where he wanted it. It's not all that like user like back flush mount kind of thing. It's more of an under dash kind. He didn't want that, so we switched it to the audio control subwoofer level control, which we can do that on. So now I have to make something to fit that. But first, let's get this into the car. With the tweeter pod's done, we have to work on the door baffles for the 6.5s. The factory is a 6x9. There's plenty of 6x9 adapters, and there's even some 6.5 adapters. We want something a little bit more rigid because our speaker is massive. For that, we're going to start with some 1/2" blown PVC, and we're going to need two this shape. Add some Mobile Solutions double-sided template tape. Make sure you press down, get all those air bubbles out, get it nice and rigid. When setting your router height, make sure that your bearing rides on this and not on this. You have to be real careful about that. When you're going with thick material like this, you get the right height, lock it in place. When I do a tall thing like this, even if I'm gonna use this again, I might not be using it for another half hour, an hour. Fernando might come over here, I might come over here and forget that it's up. I like to just twist it back down. That way I don't break or bend this guy here. The last thing I need to do is drill my holes. These are where the factory holes are. Grab your panel tool, pop this guy off. Before we pull the tape off, next we have this guy. This is gonna be a piece that is made out of acrylic. We want to set it on here first, line it up, and we need to draw two lines right here. These two lines are going to be where we're going to plane this thing down to 1/4 inch on either side. We're going to make this out of 1/4 inch on the CNC. This is going to have logos on it and make it look really pretty if someone were to ever take the door off. To plane this down, we need to take this to a 1/4 inch. How we're going to do this, we're going to pass here. We're gonna pass here, we're gonna flip it over, and we're gonna do all 4 sides. And as we gradually pull it in, that'll remove all our material. Now these guys are the thickness that we want so they can get them into the doors. This part of it is done except for the hole in the center, but we're gonna leave them taped together for right now. We need to head back over to the laptop. Now I've often referred to you as the roadkill master. Let's talk about some of your first step that you do when you get to a door. Obviously you take the door panel off.
Yes, correct.
Then what?
We're gonna clean the door. I like to start with the back. This is a brand new truck. It's not been in mud, nothing like that.
Then what's the next step?
Grab your roadkill. I like to focus in this first, and then I move my way around.
What about this stuff? What do you do for here?
When we finish the back, of course, we start taking all the screws, bracket, clips out.
So you can get material up behind there?
You can get the material all the way behind it. Every time you put a piece in,
clip it back in so you don't have to do it at the end?
Or grab something so you don't lose where the hole was.
Now you wear gloves, of course.
Yeah.
Now you have arm sleeves.
Yeah. The cool thing about these F150s is like 7mm all the way around.
Now, how long does it typically take you to do what I call the Fernando baked potato?
2 hours.
Well, there you go. There's Fernando's take on roadkill. And if I would ever thought heading back over the laptop was something that I'd be doing to do like fabrication, I didn't think that would ever come a point in the install bay where that would be a thing. I'm happy it is, but it's still pretty weird. This is what we're going to be putting on the top of that panel. The only thing we need to check is this hole to make sure it will fit our new driver properly. And after checking, it will fit fine. One of the nice things about having the Glowforge is that it saves all your artwork. So we already have these in our library. We can easily call up 2 of them, select print. This particular cut is going to take us 18 minutes and 53 seconds. Here's what we have. This is still covered in the white paper. It's black acrylic. We have the 5-star, the F150. The dust is still in there. I don't want to blow it out yet. What we need to do is mount it on top of here. And this is the circle we need to router out. We'll add some tape, line it up. We're basically checking our parallel lines right here. Drill our hole for our router to go through. Let's take it over to the router and make a circle. Repeat the same thing we did last time. Now we can take it over to the bench, peel the tape off, drill all our holes, and get this thing assembled. This piece here serves 2 things. One, we need an extra 1/4 inch to bring it out of the door for us to have a full 3/4 inch. And 2, it just looks pretty. So continuing on with the pretty look, we are going to put some M6 Allen screws in here to hold this all together. We're going to use a drill bit that has threads on it so that they'll thread in place. All right, there we go. Fernando will just add some foam. I've pre-drilled the holes. That'll screw in the door. He can put his foam around right here. Now I know no one will ever see these, but that's okay. This is something the customer really liked and a job we'd previously done, and he wanted them in his car. I mean, they're pretty. People like pretty things, so why not? Buy pretty thing.
That's so pretty.
Go add your foam. Now I got one more piece I'm gonna laser. Even though the car doesn't have them, there's no logos anywhere on these doors, but what I wanna try to do is make a Focal logo that goes right here. One more little piece for the laser. I also wanna see if he's got the Bang & Olufsen. This little silly thing here. I might make a little tiny circle of something that can just double stick tape over that. You like that idea?
Oh yeah, okay.
Let's see what we come up with. Let's dive back into the laser. We'll open up our previous logo we designed, which was this Hertz logo for another install we had done. I just need to get scale. When using the laser treats white differently than it treats dark gray. It's going to cut out the black but leave the white to where it doesn't cut that out. So this will be inverted. It'll look really nice.
This is what we ended up with. Now we have to get it to stick into the door panel, and to do that we need to add some legs, and I have a trick to do that. These are plastic staples. These are used for when we have to put broken pieces of plastic back together again. How they work is they have these little metal pieces right here, and they go between the two broken surfaces and they hold them, but they have these arms that stick out that you normally cut off. We're going to use those to stick out so we can use it kind of like a hat pin or a pin to where it'll go into the door and we can bend the legs down. So just like that, you'll see these little pins sticking out. They melted into the back. We'll put 2 of them, and then they should go in, and we can bend these tabs down, and that'll hold this into the door. Then I like to take a soldering gun and go over the little areas, because this doesn't melt in just like plastic, it's acrylic. So I just push all those back flat so that this sticks in there really nice, and they're buried in there and it won't pop off. Let's go stick it in the door and see what it looks like.
And there you have it. Nice and rigid. After doing that one, I had a thought for that little circle in the center of the dash. I think I'm gonna do the little focal ribbon on a little dot up there. I think that would look pretty cool.
For the door panel, we use the Stinger Ultimate. It has the butyl, it has the foam, and it has the aluminum.
And all the hard work has come to an end. Though we know you'll never see these, they look really cool. And the customer likes it, and that's what he wanted. At the end of the day, that's kind of the most important thing. The fast ring has been trimmed down to size. You gotta make sure that this doesn't roll when you put the door pod on. Because if this rolls up, it's going to mess with your surround, and it's a good way to break a really nice set of speakers. You don't wanna do that. Last step is, of course, to get that door panel back on. Go for it.
Originally I had printed this one and realized what I really wanted was this one. So this will go over the BO logo in the dash, and that'll be awesome.
Fernando's next task is figuring out where we're gonna put the bass knob, and it already has a bass knob in it, which is located there, and he just informed me that they weren't very nice getting it apart.
Well, the first thing is like they broke this panel. This panel not supposed to come out like this. They use a screw to attach it. The hole is definitely too big. Like if you go closer you can see. So I'm not gonna put my bass knob in there because the hole is too big.
I guess we'll come up with plan B.
We'll have to come out with plan B. Laser time!
Okay.
And then of course they attached the other wires in here. I already fixed it. It's fun.
Always a secret to be found.
So once you take the audio control bass knob out of its case, you end up with this guy right here. Fernando wants to mount it in this area here, so we have a little bit of design work to do. We want the front to match this, so it'll sit right there. Let's get started. I actually created this file already. We've done this in another vehicle. I'm just gonna print one of these out real quick and see how it looks on here. Printed up 2 different versions of what we were planning on doing in this area. This one takes the full shape, sits in there and covers the whole area. This one is just a much smaller, more in line with the front of this. Of course, I've asked Fernando which one he likes the most, and he prefers the bigger full-size one, so we're gonna go with this one. I just need to mark where I need to drill my holes from the back side, and we'll get this mounted in place. I'm going to put some double-sided tape on the back of it. This is super thin Tessa tape that will hold this in place. The nut between the bass knob and the front will lock it all. Line it up so that your LEDs come through your holes. Put your bass knob on. This is the ARC3, which is infinite spin, so it doesn't matter where your little line goes. And there you have it. You got a little 5-star logo and your audio control. I'm gonna get this over to Fernando so we can get the bass knob in. Fuse holder in and mounted securely. Made an ABS panel here to hold everything in place. Zip tied the wire up to the top here. Keep it up and away from the engine. And with this piece done, that brings us to the last piece we need for this puzzle. I'll give this to Fernando. He can get this snapped into place and we can get on to testing, tuning, and debugging and all that other fun part. Here you go, man. Just like you like. Does it meet your specifications?
Kind of.
Shut
Not really.
Whatever. While I was lasering that out, he was putting our final touches on the amp racks in place. We have our bolt located here to hold the bottom and our 2 Torx here holding the top. Now before you ask, which I know you're going to, what subwoofer does he have in his car? He's got a JL Audio, little pancake thing, and a beautiful box. This spectacular. Looks very nice, have the custom logo in it. I like the little pocket over here to put stuff. Hopefully it sounds good. Fernando just finished up the bass knob, so that is in place. Got the focal on the door. This thing's like a NASCAR, it's got logos everywhere. Fernando, are you bagging up all the stuff in the back?
I'm bagging everything.
I'm gonna slide the laptops into place and we're gonna get ready for tuning this thing. Plugging the USB onto these. The USB is located right here. It's a micro USB. When we first got it, the way this was mounted, it was really hard to get this USB in. That's why I mount them this way. I can get in, plug it right in. Real simple, real easy to service and get to. What I want to do now is plug my laptop in. Apple, gotta have your USB-C adapter. I want to set up my crossovers because the first test we're going to do is polarity, and seeing how this thing had no tune on it whatsoever, it's a good place to start. Now if you've never caught the show before and you're wondering what is a good crossover point to start with, I recommend 80 Hertz. It's a good place, it's nice middle of the road. If you've never plugged your DSP in before you do anything, it should need a software update. Very rarely do you plug in a DSP for the first time and it doesn't need a software update, so be leery. Don't start going all crazy into it before you check to see if it has. And if you're doing some DSPs, the controller may also need a software update, so always check that first. This one needed a software update, but when we first plugged it in earlier, it did the software update. We're good. On an audio control, inputs 5 and 6 are the Toshlink inputs. 1 through 4 aren't going to be used for anything. In the software, you can label what you want things to do, and I put it as off. You can also label your outputs, and I like to do that as well. I have my inputs here labeled as off, and I've labeled my outputs. It's a little bit more effective than blue tape. I also color coded the RCA, if anyone should get into this after me. Now on the audio control, it has input selection when you go to output view. This box right here, everything for channels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 should all be selected as 5 and 6 input. That's telling it here, inputs 5 and 6, the Toshlink is going to feed this input. And I also need to go in and erase that crazy curve they put in here for the EQ on channels 1 and 2 that was useless. Another thing you want to keep in mind when you're doing DSP work is save your file. Anytime you make a change or you're doing a batch of changes or you have a break in what you're doing, save it. Now in audio control, there's an arrow here, right here in the software, and if you click it, it'll say save as. Tap that, and that will allow you to create a file to save. Now if you log out and log back in, it'll give you save and save as. You can just select save, and then when it takes you to the breakout, select the file that you've created. Now that's the other thing too, is create a file name structure. So typically what we use is the name of the truck, the color of the truck, and the date. There's only going to be one gray Ford F-150 on this date. What you doing, Fernando?
Put in my time alignment.
Are you using that cool laser?
A cool laser right there. Alright, done.
You know, if there was a cat in here, he'd be real happy chasing that little red dot.
Hey, look at that.
I can't see it. Oh, it's on the dash? Yeah, there you go.
Hey, come on, buddy. Jump.
Fernando just finished doing all the measurements with the laser. Since I have this out right now, I'm gonna enter those. Because we're not doing full active, you wanna measure to the big mid bass, from ear to mid bass, and then add usually 2 inches, 2 to 3 inches, depending on how far in the speaker is setting in the door panel. When doing time alignment, you need to know what type of processor you have. Meaning, the audio control, you just put the numbers in and it figures out your delay through the 0 point, meaning the farthest one away, it subtracts, it does the math, and it adds that minimal distance to the driver's side. Some of these, you have to go in and do the math yourself. Like this is 60 and that's 50, that's gonna be 10, you have to add 10 and then multiply by the distance. Okay, so you get there could be some math involved. So make sure you read about that in the owner's manual. Otherwise, you could really kind of screw up the whole time delay thing, and then of course save. Now with this information all saved, we're gonna move on to the polarity test to make sure the speaker's all moving in the right direction. Everything is moving in the direction we expected. People often ask why I loathe Windows so much. Mac up and ready to go. Take your sweet time, do your thing. It's okay. Just don't break on me. We got our microphone mounted in place, playing our pig noise. We're gonna start with this door here, work our way to this door. We're gonna mute everything in the back here. So what that means is do one side at a time and work your way around. The software allows us to do that, so that is the plan. Most DSP software will allow you to do that. On the audio control, you come over here, this area where it says 1 and 2, select 1 or 2. This will sum the 2 together. What we're looking at across the bottom here is the input signal. We want to go to 3 and 4, and mute that, 5 and 6, mute that, 1 and 2, and mute the driver's front. Now on your DMRTA, we're looking at the signal coming out of the speakers. We're gonna fix this area here. This has a speed in which you can see it, so if we go real time, see it's moving real jittery, and then you can also slow it down to really slow time. I like to do medium. You can also expand out the view if you really want to get a finer detail. The other thing on the audio controls, this little guy here in the corner, you click that, it'll expand out your EQ so you can see what's going on. Now there's no reason for us to do auto because we know coming out of the factory radio is perfectly flat. There's no bass, mid, and treble adjustment. It's a touch link. It's going through the nav TV Zen. So what we're looking at is 100% just sound. I like to start with the biggest, tallest bump and start pulling down. And as you get one side done, save it, move on to the next one. When you have it looking a lot better than what it did when it started, there's only so much you can do outside of the vehicle. You need to hop in, use your ears to figure out what's going on. Sometimes you need to adjust a little bit here and there, tweak the EQ, sit inside, and have a little bit of fun. And that's where we're headed now. I'm going to go ahead and remove the RTA, and we're just going to tweak it just a little bit. Now don't be afraid to let somebody else sit in there and listen to what it is you're doing. I know if you've watched these videos before, you see me over here, you see me over there, you see him over here, him over there. But he knows what he's listening for. Sometimes when you're in that seat and you're tuning it and it just, it's like, sometimes it just gets fatiguing. Like, right. You just don't, am I making any difference? Is this what I'm supposed to hear? And like today, this year's been kind of bothering me for like a couple weeks. So I wanted him to hop in and take a listen and see what's going on. As far as adjustments that we've made since outside to inside, there's not really much of anything. Just adjusted the time delay like 2 or 3 inches, which is expected because it's not 100%. Back to some Stevie Wonder. Superstition. It's really cool because there's a lot of instruments that play back and forth. If you have, you know, Pandora, Spotify, or iTunes Music, download it and listen to it. It's really cool.
Sounds really nice.
This is what he has. Way more fun there, right? Yeah. All right, guys. Well, this one is done. We're gonna deliver this vehicle. This was a lot of fun. We know how you guys love the 911 stuff. It was really sad for him. I gotta be honest with you. Let's hope he enjoys this one for many years to come. As we like to say, Fernando.
On to the next one, guys.
You guys have a great night as always. We'll see you later next time.
Bye.
Bye.